Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Raising Healthy Mothers. Today, I'm excited to welcome Chrissy Hawkins onto the show. Chrissy is an online strength coach who specializes in helping equestrians to improve their riding position and rehabilitate injuries, which is really niche, Chrissy.
It is very niche, believe it or not.
But the reason why I wanted to invite you on is because you have a really brilliant podcast with a really brilliant title, really catching, because it's Why Not? And I love that. It's just such a brilliant mindset switch that is simple to do. And I don't think I do it anywhere near enough. So I thought it'd be really interesting to dig into that in this episode. But before we get into that, tell us about yourself and how you got into what you do.
Okay, right. So as I said, I am an equestrian strength coach. So I have been horse riding. No, I haven't been horse riding officially because my horse is broken, but he's retired now. But I've been horse riding since I was 7, so that's 28 years. And I have been a PT for 8 years. And every sport has strength and conditioning. You look at rugby teams, you look at football teams, you look at tennis players, you look at golfers, everything has a form of strength and conditioning. And what I've noticed is the only sport that seems to not do that is equestrian sports.
Mm.
Because a lot of them live under the illusion that the best way to get better is to ride more, which is not always the case. So there is elements of it coming into some of the top level people are starting to ride it, but it's still trying to get everyone to like learn about that. And you can make your riding so much better if you're a little bit more stronger. One of the things when you're stronger is you'll feel more in control. When you feel more in control, you'll feel more confident. And you will then, this translates into your performance, how you ride, how you get on with your horse, your partnership. Because one big difference, obviously, that horse riding has that, or equestrian sports have that other sports is, and I don't like to refer to them as your equipment, but your equipment has a mind of its own.
Mm.
So you're not just hitting a ball or something like that. You have to make sure that animal's comfortable too as well. So it's something that pairs two things I'm really interested in is like strength and condition and horse riding, and basically how we can make horse riding as well, like equestrians, enjoy their sport more.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I think I've ridden a horse like once in my life. Like, I am not a horse rider, but it seems like a really obvious thing that obviously your horse is a being and needs to feel that the being on top of it is in charge and or in control and has that confidence. So I think, yeah, it seems like an obvious thing. Then it's amazing that it's been neglected. But yeah, fascinating. I'm so interested by the fact that that feels like such a niche topic, but then it's so obvious when you explain
But
it
it's
like
such a
that.
massive, massive horse riding community in so many different disciplines as well. Like, you like most people, I find a lot of people ask me, "Oh, you know loads about racing, then do you?" I was like, "Haven't a clue about it." I am in the kind of show jumping, eventing, I see dressage more. But again, it's interesting because you'll hear show jumpers talk about how important your flat work, which is the dressage, how the horse listens to you, translates into your jumping. But for some reason, it's only with the horse. It's never about how my strength or my ability to move will translate into what I'm
Yeah,
doing. So
yeah.
it's always focused on the horse and how they can make them feel better and how they can make them move better. And it's all like, will I get the horse a physio? Does the horse need a dentist? Does the horse
Mm.
need a chiropractor? There is ones like for ollies. Do they need shoes, special diets? And it's like the equestrians are just like hanging on by a thread.
So this is really interesting because you talk about that, I think, a bit on your Instagram as well, about how the fact that equestrians often like put their horses first, make sure that they have everything they need, but really put themselves so far down the list and like neglect themselves. And this is so familiar. I am a mom. My audiences are all mums. And that is exactly the same with how I feel that we often are with our children. We put our children first, we make sure they're fed, we make sure they're clean. And obviously, that is our role, that's our job as a parent. But we forget the whole, if you don't put your oxygen mask on first, you can't help your loved ones. So it totally resonates. So, how do you help your equestrians see that they are important too?
See, it's funny actually because if you think mums are bad, you see equestrian mums. They're like that and they've a horse. No, not that it's competition. I think a lot of the time they have to get to a point where they feel so frustrated and they've kind of tried everything but they've never tried anything for themselves. And like I have a client that I was working with today, and this is a really good example. She bought something recently, and I think this is so true of like equestrians. Is the other day she went to one of the equestrian shops, and there's this brand that makes really nice horse riding gear. They're a new enough brand, and she said she normally wouldn't buy it for herself, but her husband decided to buy it, and she got this really nice numna saddle pad for the horse, and then she also got a really nice top that matches it. And it's that thing of like, you're treating yourself, but it's because you can use it for the horse. Do you know what I mean? It's always that like, oh, I'm doing this, but like, I want to have my matching thing and I'll feel real good about myself, but like I've got it for the horse, you know? So I think when they, at this point where they've done everything, that they finally might look inwards. It's really, really hard to convince them.
Yeah.
But I think it is that of like, you need to do the work for you as well. You need to matter. You do matter. Like, and it's very easy. I think it's even easier for them to put themselves down even more because it's a living being. It's like when you have children. I'm not comparing like animals to children, but you know what I mean? Like you're like, oh no, I have to do it for them. Don't mind me. It's they don't value their participation. And even I've gotten to the point where I've started talking about, this is good for your horse. Try and get it to resonate with people, because they might go, oh, I can help my horse out. Maybe I will do this.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I'm saying it completely resonates, because I'm the same. I can say to my clients till I'm blue in my face, you need to look after yourself. But if I can put it in the context of how it's going to have that knock-on effect with their family and their children, it's like, oh yeah, okay, I get it. And it is so, yeah, it's frustrating because obviously, as a nutritionist, I'm sure it isn't, as well as a PT, that you can do, if you do it preventatively, you don't need to get to that point of frustration and burnout and so on. But that's the piece, isn't it? That's the hard thing to convince everyone, that do it before it happens.
And do you know what it is as well? I think it's almost like, see, I think there's obviously a very common misconception that like anyone who owns horses have money, when a lot of people work really, really hard to keep their horses. They spend a lot of money on them, which stops them doing other things like maybe holidays and things like that, and it's almost like this badge of honor of like, I'm wearing crappy stuff. My leg is sore. You know what I mean? But like, look at everything I do for my horse. It's almost become that kind of thing. It's like, I have to suffer, but look what I do for my horse. And I think,
Yeah.
not saying that all mothers are like that, but almost sometimes mothers can be like that as well. And it's like, oh, you had 2 hours of sleep? Well, I only had half an hour of sleep,
Absolutely, completely.
Yeah.
Competition, martyrdom. Recognize, resonate, and also see it. I've seen it in myself as well. Like, I feel I'm working so hard, so therefore I must be doing the best for my kids. And then, just completely realizing that I'm no good if I'm like that, because then I know that I then become a lot less patient with them. And I imagine it must be the same with horse riders, right? Like you I guess it's part of that control and confidence thing again, isn't it?
Yeah. And like, you'll find sometimes people will project it onto the horse, like, the horse didn't want to do this today, the horse is acting up. And look, some horses are difficult. I want to use a different word, but I'm not going to use it. But the majority of the time, if they're not listening, it's either because you're not giving them clear enough instructions, they're scared, because horses they don't have fight or flight, they flight. So unfortunately, this makes them incredibly stupid sometimes as well, and a plastic bag can make them absolutely lose their lives. But they need to feel confident in you. And at the end of the day, people think that the horse does all the work. A horse will not do anything unless it feels comfortable its rider. I have seen them. They're half-ton animals. They're doing it because they want to and they trust you. If they don't want to do something, you cannot make them do it. I've seen Olympic riders get eliminated because the horse has decided, no, not into this. If they can't do it, an amateur can't do it. So often, it's not necessarily the horse, it's maybe you're not giving clear aids. Now, sometimes there's things like weather, that if it's too windy, monsters are in the bushes, it's game over. And there's all these nuances to it. But 9 out of 10 times, if you're struggling with the same thing for a long time, It's because you're not being clear or you're not confident. And if you're not confident, they're not confident and they won't listen to you then.
Mm. Yeah, honestly, we could take this metaphor and just run with it forever and
I
ever about
swear.
horses and children, because it's exactly the same. Like, and I think, as mothers, you sort of forget that it's, you because I think we have this world as well where you think you've got to discipline your children, and then a lot of people are like, well, it's not about discipline, it's not about that kind of old school punitive punishment sort of discipline, but then not really knowing how to do it otherwise, and then this push and pull. But yeah, absolutely, if you have the confidence and you can be a great leader to your children, and then they have the natural follow through of respect and belief that you know what you're doing and can do that for you, is the theory of it. Anyway, as I said, we could run with this forever. This is brilliant. um but let's get into that kind of mindset bit about that you talk about a lot in your podcast, because I think that's what I'm really interested in. So the name
Yeah.
of the podcast is Why Not? How did you come up with that? I feel like it's so obvious, but it's so brilliant.
Yeah. So the whole idea of the podcast came in 2020. Me and my friend decided to set up a podcast, and we were kind of thinking of names, and then it just came to me one day because I was like, we wanted to do it on a kind of mindset basis and talk about different things and maybe challenge certain opinions. And I was like, why not? Because like the tagline of the podcast, is in a world where people are asking why, we're here to ask why not. And it's kind of like it is that simple. Like someone says you can't do something, why not? Yeah, obviously you have to apply logical for certain situations. Like I'm not going to jump off my balcony and say why not to flying, but um, it's just like challenging these things. And I think myself over the years, I've had these issues. I've constantly come back over. Like I look at some of the topics I've covered before, and I was like, how did I have the balls to do that? Because like I would, I haven't managed that yet. And they're not even big topics, but it's like I suppose continually reinforcing them, even just like speaking about them, can help you reinforce it in your head as well. And I think the more people you talk to who have this mindset really helps you build that mindset, because I've talked to people from all different places, so I've talked to like personal trainers, I've talked to equestrians, I've talked to mindset coaches, um marketers, all these different things. And like you see a lot of the same things, you see a lot of the same themes, and it's really interesting that it, like, I suppose it runs through all parts of our life. And it's really I fun and interesting seeing how it comes up in like maybe one section of your life you have it perfectly nailed down. Like for me, when it comes to fitness, it's part of my life. I do it not every day, but I do some form of movement, or I do work out 5 days a week. This is just part of me. But trying to get myself to sit down and record stuff, or try to get myself to like put myself out there to advertise myself, like I can't do it. I'm like, why can't I just not apply that to
Yeah.
the other stuff? So I think it's interesting to, I suppose, find every different element and question it as much as we can.
Yeah. And I think coming, being able to boil it down to why not is helpful, because I think there's a lot of talk about mindset, I think, at the moment. And sometimes I'm like, what does that mean? What is mindset? What are people trying to get at when they say that? But I think the idea of being able to have in the back of my mind of, well, why not? And you can keep asking it, can't you? Like, why do you think you can't do that? Why not? Why not? Why not? I mean, you can keep going, can't you? It's layers and layers and layers of why not.
Yeah, it is. And people don't want to ask those questions either. And that's
Yeah.
what I think is really interesting, or even trying to get to ask those questions. It's something that even I'd say I wasn't like, sometimes I feel like I was putting out that podcast and not like meaning it in a sense, or things I was talking about, like I was very comfortable talking about fitness, but like mindset things, you kind of know you're not doing it yourself. But I suppose this year I started doing therapy, and which made me actually question a lot of my own problems, or not problems, mindset blocks, I want to say. And I think that has helped me now every time I get a block to be just like ask a question. And then like even talking to yourself in your head, or sometimes like I'd say it out loud because I live alone, it's great. Um, but being able to ask those questions makes such a difference to when you don't. Because if you don't ask those questions, like the why not, or even why am I feeling this way? Is there this reason? A lot of the time it comes back to the same thing, but if you don't ask those questions, it just become beliefs in your head, and then they weigh you down and things get worse and worse, and they can just lead you into really, I suppose, dark places if you don't ask those questions, you know?
Yeah, interesting. And I find it interesting that you've started therapy this year, but obviously been doing the podcast for quite a long time and it's kind of feeding into that. It's really interesting. Why do you think mindset is important for women?
I think mindset is important for everybody. However, I do think it's very important for women because traditionally we allow ourselves to become the background character. And I don't think we should, because, you know, for a long time, men would go out, they work, you know, the women look after the children. And for some reason, that's seen as a lesser challenge.
Mm.
I don't have kids myself, but I know I would rather be the man going to work than having to deal with children all day. And I think, like, now there's more like women pushing for more rights and coming forward, and they almost feel like they have to say, you know, when you kind of compliment a woman on something, they almost have to be like, oh yeah, like it's like the pennies hunting. I don't know, is it if you're in the UK, it's Primark. Someone will tell you that, like, oh my God, your dress is real nice. You'd be like, oh, thanks, pennies. It's almost like deflecting, you know what I mean? Like, you know, it cost me nothing.
You
Uh,
have no idea. So this literally happened to me yesterday. Someone complimented me on something I was wearing. And I was like, oh yeah, I got it from Vinted, which is like a secondhand like online shop. And I was like, I said it and immediately was like, why didn't I just say thank you? Like, why did I have to qualify it with, oh yeah, but it was like secondhand or it was cheap or whatever. And actually buying secondhand is an important value. It's not secondhand because I'm cheap. It's secondhand because I don't want to have this kind of like, you know, buy cheap and fast fashion thing. I like secondhand because it suits my values. So that is so interesting that you've just said that.
it's a big one over here. Like, people would be like, thanks, pennies. It's not like boasting and only cost me a tenner. Like, do you know what I mean? And it's like, I feel like that, like, we feel like we have to do that, like almost like make little small, don't put too much attention on me. And
Yeah.
for anyone who's trying to get out there or do a business or move up in the corporate ladder, any of these situations, or look after a family, like, you have to be like, hell yeah, I'm doing really well, you know?
Yeah.
And I notice myself, like, I'm the person who would say pennies one, or you have to deflect it. I've tried saying thank you a few times and it feels real weird, like, but
Yeah.
you know, it's kind of nice to just be like, oh yeah, I do deserve this compliment, you know? Um, but I think that's why, like, it is, it's like there is this constant, like, we need to like make ourselves smaller or something. But if you're trying to get yourself, like I said, you're trying to move yourself forward, you need to be ready to be big and be ready to
Yeah.
like take up space. And I just feel like it is something that women struggle with more than men, because women, we have this more nurturing character, more emotional. Men are meant to be aggressive, they're meant to be, you know, fighting. I don't know what they do. Men do weird things. I say this, I'm such a tomboy as well. I'm not a girly girl at all. Like, the emotional stuff is more difficult. Give me sports any day. But like, I think that's the thing we need to be used to, because I think sometimes if you try to be big and confident, there's a lot of people going like, what you at? You know what I mean? You kind of get
Yeah.
dragged more than I think men. It's expected of men, but when women do, it's like, what you doing? She shouldn't be at that, you know?
Yeah. And I think as well, like that question, why not? It's like it's quite disruptive, isn't it? It's almost like, here's the status quo, and I'm saying, well, why not? Why can't I do this? Um, what do you think is key to gaining that confidence to go through with things when the world is saying, why are you doing that? And you're trying to go, well, why not?
You just have to keep doing it. This is like, it's like anything. It's like fitness. It's like, you know, learning a hobby, learning a skill. People think often, I think, that like if you just do it, everything will be okay. But like, or just don't do it. It's too scary. But you have to keep doing the hard thing, and you have to keep doing the hard thing, keep doing the hard thing. And that's something I've really brought into my mindset recently as well. It's like every time I don't want to do something, I'm like, well, you're making yourself better by doing the hard thing. Or
Mm.
it's this really, really good question recently. And it's really something I try to ask myself every day. And it's like, is what I'm doing today going to bring me closer to where I want to be?
Mm.
And every time you ask yourself that question, it's like a kick up the arse if you're frozen doing nothing, you know, and like not wanting to do stuff. You're like, okay, well, if I actually want to do this, I have to do the hard things. And like nothing is easy. Like people who run a marathon didn't do it in one day. They spend months
Mm.
training for it.
Mm.
You know, you see so many people. I was talking this actually, it's going to be out on my podcast, Vicky, and I hate when people say I'm not good at that or I can't
Mm.
do that, and I'm like, you've not tried.
Yeah.
Or when someone turns around to you and goes, "You're so good at that. I could never do that," and I was like, I've spent a long time doing this to get to where I am. You can't do it because you've never tried and you've not put the time in.
Mm.
Let's not like that's completely like that's where you can go like why not? Why can't you do it?
Mm.
And then they'd be like, oh, you know, oh, I don't understand how to do this. Okay, why not? Well, I'm too old for this technology. Why? You know,
Yeah.
bring them down this thing. Like if you sat down and spent some time, spent the hours that other people are doing on things, then you probably would be able to do it.
Yeah. And it's interesting as well, like, coming back to sort of motherhood and having kids, because kids are constantly, I mean, there's such a contradiction, really, because on the one hand, they'll be like, I want to do everything myself. I'm really independent. I'm going to do it all myself. And then, they'll turn around and be like, trying to do something they're perfectly good at and be like, I can't do it. I can't do it. And you're like, we haven't tried, and kind of trying to build that independent muscle, but also giving them the support that they need to actually get through it in a way that isn't going to be like too frustrating that they give up. And it's like it's like a constant balancing act, basically, which is probably motherhood generally.
I think kids are a really good example of the why not though thing because a lot of the times they'll just like, I want to try that. I'll go try it. It might be
Yeah,
difficult, they might give up and go again, but like a lot of the time they'll have that little didn't work out, move on. Whereas
yeah,
when you become an adult, it's almost like I can't even try that because what happens if it doesn't go
yeah,
right? I'll 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 be an embarrassment to who?
mm,
You know?
yeah,
And
yeah. and
but
and the
what if it
dogged
does go right?
Yeah, and that's the thing, isn't it? I mean, you do, as you said, you can learn a lot from kids because they do also have a dogged determination. When they really want something, they will keep going.
God,
And
yeah.
I think we have this stereotype that, kids who, these days are, addicted to screens or whatever. But you can see if the kid really wants something to do something, they will do it and they will keep going and keep going. And I mean, I see this in my son with building Lego. Like, it's just incredible how, and it's so frustrating. And then he walks away and then he comes back and, um, yeah, as you said, a lot to learn about it.
Yeah, no, it is interesting to say that because they do have that like determination because they haven't any stories yet that they can't do it.
Mm.
And I think the problem is we make these stories that we can't. A lot of the time it is all in your head. And sitting down and asking yourself why you feel that way and really asking why or why not you can't do it, you know, is the only way you can find out where the mental block is. Because often it's not, for instance, I do a lot of video editing. People are like, oh, I could never do that. And I'm like, why not? Like, do you know how many things are on your phone now? Do you know how many AI things can help us? I just don't know how to do that. Right. Well, there's YouTube that has video tutorials that'll
Mm.
teach you how to do it, and if you actually get down to it, it's because they don't either, it's never the actual thing. It's they don't want to put themselves out there, or they're afraid what people will think of them, or all these different things. But I think, yeah, it's just really important to get yourself to the bottom of it. Whereas as a kid, you're just like, I have no reason to think I can't do this. So
Mm.
I'm gonna go do it.
Yeah. And it's an identity thing as well, isn't it? I mean, I have a client, she's been working with me for a couple of months now, and she's just doing incredibly well. Like, she's made all these changes and she's just miles away than where she was 2 months ago. And she's just been on holiday with family, and they were just saying, oh, why are you eating that? Why are you doing that? Why are you getting up at 7:30 on holiday when you could be, like having a lion? And she's like, she's really actively working hard to just let it roll off her back and be like, well, because this is who I am now. And I was trying to explain that actually they are the ones who are insecure about this changes that you're making, and you are becoming a different person and they're staying the same. And yeah, it's back to that sort of identity thing of, if you want to do something and you want to do it well enough, how, you've got to switch your identity a little bit of, I am no longer the person who can't do it because I'm now the person who can. And I guess, that's part of, you keep trying, you keep working hard at it, because then you can prove to yourself that actually you can do it.
Oh yeah, like, and I get constant stuff like that, like for between the running I do, or because I'm not like horse riding, or if I do, like I love lifting really heavy weights because my goal in life is to be a tank. I always say that because I'm 5'2" for anyone who you can't see, but you can see I'm 5'2", and it is without steroids near on physically impossible for women to get overly muscular unless they've
Mm-hmm.
got really high levels of testosterone naturally. So that's my joke. It's like I'm taking back that. Like I want to be a tank. Well, I am a
Yeah.
tank. I'm really strong, but I'm very lean and I'm not like I don't look like a bodybuilder, that kind of way. And people are like, ugh, why would you want to do that? And I'm like, it's fun. It's a challenge. Why do
Yeah.
you want to, I don't know, sit down all the time?
Yeah. And it's interesting, as well, because I mean, I'm similar. I'm not, I exercise, love and hate with me, but I do love lifting heavy things. I love, whenever I was really into going to the gym and stuff, it was always about the lifting heavy things. Um, and I've recently started running, and I've always said I'm not a runner. I've really been like strongly holding on to this identity that I'm not a runner. And it's because I like lifting heavy things just once, 1 to 3 times, and then just putting it down and walking away and then doing something else, right? What I've done is, I know I'm going to start the couch to 5K. And because I've been doing quite a lot of strength training and fitness work for the last 2 years, this is now like the fourth time I've started couch to 5K. I've never finished it, but it's for the first time feeling genuinely easier. And it's kind of going back to the fact that, my identity of I'm not a runner actually has shifted, because I'm finding it actually easier because of my previous identity of I like strength training and that suits me.
It's funny actually. I still don't call myself a runner, and I've been running for, I'd say, fairly consistently for the last maybe 2 years. And I've like at this point I've done 3 half marathons, and I'm still like I'm never doing a full marathon. This is never happening. But I'm like I'm not a runner. I just run, and I'm okay with that. Whereas on the flip side, I'm also like I'm still an equestrian. I haven't been horse riding.
Yeah.
I haven't been on a horse in maybe 6 months was the last time, but at the end of the day, I'm still an equestrian as far as I'm
Yeah.
concerned, and I always will be because I'm a horse girl. I will always be obsessed with horses, um, and it's funny how the identities can like really really affect you. Because I found the time my horse got injured, well now he's retired. It was a career-ending injury. He wasn't really exactly very. He wasn't a high-level animal. He was 24 years old. He was not like going to Grand Prix or going to high-level competitions. He hadn't competed in ages actually. But I felt like when that happened, I was like, shit, because I'm probably not going to get another horse.
Yeah.
Um, that's me done now. I'm not a horse girl anymore, and it was like a complete crisis. And I've realized that over time that that's not the case, and I I have been back, I've leased horses, all these things happening, but it wasn't just that dead end, and it wasn't that, I suppose, yeah, it wasn't just a dead end, I think. And I think that's really important identity as well, because our identities can change, but they also
Mm.
are not forced to change, you know what I mean?
Mm. Yeah, it's interesting because, yeah, again, going back to the fact that when you're a horse rider, you are so closely linked to
Mm.
your horse, and then when your horse is no longer able to to be to be a part of you, then it's like, well, who am I now? Because
Mm.
my identity was so linked to that horse. And again, I think it's very similar to motherhood. It's like you have this really key role for like 18 years, and then suddenly it's it's over. But of course, it's never over. You're
Yeah.
still gonna be a mother for the rest of their life, for the rest of your life and beyond. I mean, my mum's no longer around, but I'm still very much know and feel her presence. Like I still
Yes.
know that she's there, and had a huge influence of me. And it's gonna your identity may shift because that presence is no longer there, but or that sort of role in their life has changed. But that doesn't mean it goes forever, like it's gone.
Yeah. And I think it's funny, identities can be so helpful and we can almost so destructive at the same time.
Yeah.
Like, was the reason you kept stop running because you don't identify as a runner, and now you're like, actually, maybe I could be a runner. And for me at the time, it was like with the horse riding, it was like I've lost a piece of me, but like I still see him 3 times a week. I'm a very good carrot delivery person, and he's up the road. I still see him. I'm sorry, I get more excited when I see the foals up in the yard and I see actual children, human children. But you know, it is still ingrained you, and then you kind of realize sometimes maybe, like you said, identities can shift. And I think we need to be able to be like that as well when it comes to the likes of, like you were saying, your client who's making a change. Like, she's made an identity shift, and the other people around her aren't comfortable with it, and it makes them question their own identities.
Yeah.
And if you're not able to question and think about the movement, it can be very detrimental to yourself as well, I think.
Yeah. And also, again, you can make all of these shifts, especially when you have a coach, you have a nutritionist, or you have a strength trainer, and you start identifying as, someone who does strength training, or someone who goes running, or someone who, takes care of her health and nutrition. And then once that relationship is gone, that sort of motivation to keep it up kind of starts disappearing and changing. And I think it goes back to what you said, I think right at the beginning, about the fact that in the podcast, you surround yourself with all these people who work on their mindset, who kind of ask the why not question. And that helps you to keep going with that, building that muscle. And it's the same, I think. It's like sometimes it can be hard to maintain that identity. And it's about surrounding yourself with all the people who can help you, or who can keep building that up, and who are going through something similar but have that positive outcome in mind, rather than what her family were, which was like, what's the status quo, and I want to change, I want to stay here, I don't want to change my status quo because it's hard work.
Oh, it's hard, yeah. And that's the thing as well. This is where it comes back to the mindset thing as well. In every facet of life, you can have the best PT in the world, you can have the best nutritionist in the world, you can have state-of-the-art gym, you can have life coaches, you can have whatever you want. But if you don't have the right mindset, it's not going to work. And this sometimes takes time. Sometimes it takes a bit of time. People sometimes think they invest the money in, I buy it, it'll fix it. Is that kind of like, I'd say, like Amazon type mindset, like, I've put money into it, I should get it now. But you have to be able to, there's some things that you have to still put in the time yourself. Like, you have to show up to the sessions. That's fine. Sometimes it's 6 a.m. and you're going to hate getting up, or sometimes you're tired after a long day. And then other times, you're going to want to do things, but you're going to have to make different choices. And that's really hard. And you have to be ready to do that when you start, because otherwise it won't happen for you, basically.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's so interesting because it is, a lot of people come to me, or, talk to me, and they're like, what is the supplement that I can take to fix this thing? And you're like, I'm not, I'm not going to just give you a pill. Like, that's not how it works.
Oh, the amount of people as well. Like, I'll be chatting to someone and they're like, yeah, so I've been meaning to get back to the gym. Like, I don't care. We're in a pub. Leave me alone. You're a PT. Oh, yeah. I don't really like gyms. And I'm like, I don't care. You don't have to go to the gym. If you don't want to go to the gym, don't go to the gym. Like, this is like my thing as well when it comes to fitness. Find something you enjoy. I don't care if that's five-a-side football. I don't care if it's a dance class. I don't care if it's yoga. I don't care if it's lifting really heavy weights. Just do what you enjoy, and don't tell me about it when I'm in the pub. I don't care.
Yeah, so true. Amazing. This has been such an interesting discussion. I feel like we could have kept going on about it. But I think we'll stop there. So let's tell people where they can find you, and particularly your podcast.
Okay, so my podcast, as we said, is called Why Not? So it is available on, I know it's on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and a few other ones, but the best way to find it, if you are looking, is either on my website, which is www.chrissyhawkins.com. That has links to it on Spotify and Apple. And then on top of that as well, on my Instagram, the link's in my bio. So my Instagram is @strongthesaddle with an underscore. I'm also over on TikTok. It's @strongthesaddle without the underscore, because I got there first. But yeah, that's pretty much the best places to find me. I'm mostly knocking around on Instagram, and I try to have a podcast episode out every Tuesday if I can.
Brilliant. Okay, and I'll link to all of those in the show notes as well, so people can find you. And hopefully we've got some equestrians listening as well who might be like, aha, this is what I need.
Yeah. Look after yourself, equestrians, and also actually moms do that too, because these are just as bad.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your views on the why not mindset.
Thank you.
Take care.